Hi everybody, welcome to a new tutorial from Sound for More. It's Leo speaking. Today I have the pleasure to guide you through how the section loop works inside Spacefields. It's really great. You have two loop recording buffers or units. You have transition between them, crossovers. You can play around with signal being recorded based on different thresholds, because we are going to also have a look at the auto mode as well in terms of recording. And finally, I'm going to touch on the different settings of how the reverb works. Okay, I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Let's go straight into it. Okay, so we are inside again Spacefields. I have already configured it, so I have just a audio unit instance here for grand piano, and then I have Spacefield as an audio processor. So I have my init set up, and this time I want to show you how the loop section works. So for this, I'm going to change the mode. So far we played with the direct mode, and in this mode you hear directly the sound coming from the piano. Okay, straight going through the audio processor. Now we're going to change that to auto. So auto mode is very different. To start with, it uses the thresholds, so it will start recording the audio coming through if the audio reaches and passes through a threshold. So if you click on it, you see the threshold is set to -45 decibel. So if it passes that threshold, it will start to record the audio signal coming in. It will record for the length in bits, which is set, in this case 1, and it will stop recording when the audio signal falls below that threshold. Of course, if the audio signal doesn't fall below that threshold, and the length of recording has passed, in this case 1 bit, but you can change it to how many bits you like, then it will start to overwrite the loop buffer that has been previously recorded. So it will keep overwriting itself. Okay. Now, as you can see below here, there are 3 little writings. One which says TRN for transition, then L1 for loop 1, and then loop 2. So the way that it works is that when you press on a note, it will, and the audio signal is coming in, it will pass the threshold, it will start to record, then it will start to record on the loop which is not being used previously. Then when the audio signal goes or falls below the threshold, it will stop recording and it will transition the audio that is being recorded out to the free playback outputs. Okay, and you will see the button here, TRN for transition, becoming green. When you press again another note, or you have another input signal coming in, the opposite loop will start to be recording, and then when that is finished recording, it will transition again to the output. So in this case, it will continue to work like that. So at the moment, let's set the output level to 0. I want to make sure that I don't have any output, and let's click on one note and you'll see what I mean. Click, you see loop 2 is being recorded. And what happens is that they stop recording at some point because it's a piano, so the sound will decay. You probably have noticed also that the duration of what is being recorded was shown down here. And when it starts overwriting itself, it becomes red as well. So let me try again. So loop 1, stop recording, there is a transition. The transition is very quick, and then the output is sent to or the audio signal is sent to the free playback output. So in this case, it was L1. Click again. This time it's for L2. Of course, it's transitioning out. Next time, L1, and it goes into a cycle. Okay. So now let's enable some output, and also let's increase the level up to the first playback output. Also to note that what is being recorded will be sent repeatedly to the free playback output. So let's try. So as you can see, you have the output coming out from here on the first playback output, because that is what I have enabled, the increase in the level. Now, let's increase the length to something like, I don't know, 4 bits, like so. Let's clear, and clear will clear the current buffer, and you see transition period, and then that is passed on to the free playback output, which in this case will be no sound. Okay, let's re-enable the output level, and let's try again. I have now 4 bits length, so I can play notes for a little bit longer. Okay, as you can see, you had notes recorded for a longer period of time, and they are passed through the first playback output. Now let's increase the dry-wet ratio, and so we have only wet. We don't hear anymore the dry sound. Of course, if I was going to change now the length of what is being recorded to something like 8, you will hear that a part of the sound is not recorded. Of course, I can also reduce it. Okay, let's reset these to 4. In this mode, it will use also the crossover, and the crossover setting enables you to do a crossover from the end of the loop to the beginning. And in that way, it will shorten the loop, and it will cross over to a maximum of half of what is being recorded. So just remember that. And that makes it for a smoother transition. So let's try. So you can hear that there is a crossover from the end of the loop and the beginning of the loop itself, and it makes it almost like a string sound, depending, of course, if you like that. Now, one other thing that in this auto mode you can use is the transition settings. At the moment, the transition from one sound to the other is very quick. Let me show you. So as you can hear, the transition from one sound to the next in terms of what is being recorded is very quick. Well, you can change that, and you will hear that the sounds overlap for a brief period of time, depending, of course, on the setting on the transition dial, which makes it for a smoother transition. And you can see it also down here that the transition lights up for longer. So let me try. Let go. You see, is up for longer, is lit for longer to signal that you have a longer transition. That becomes really handy, of course. Now, let's clear that again. Something else as well, in this mode, you can finally use the pitch dial. So let me show you. And remember, you can set it in this way. You will set it in reverse. Okay, so let me try. And you can clearly hear it that when I was moving it to the left, it was reversing the pitch. So bear that in mind. Also, in this mode, you can continue to use these number of steps, and you can fade them as well between them. And of course, you can decide to have the number of pulses as well. Okay, so let's reset these and down to step 1, pulses number 1, like so. The transition set it to minimal as well, and also let's remove the crossover. You have another important setting here for automatic gain control, and you have setting between fast, mild, and slow, and of course off. This enables you to keep the sound at higher recording signal when you have variation on the input signal. You would set it to fast where you have more of a monotone type of change, and you will set it to slow when you have a fast moving change in terms of input signal variation. To hear that better, you probably need to have a little bit of saturation, or it works really well when you have a much lower pitch, which will, of course, will increase the length of the signal being played. So probably to notice that better or to see how that works, I would probably, I don't know, change the audio unit extension to something like more a synth. Let's try. Yeah, that will do. Clear these, and then probably I will set it differently depending on the settings, and I'll probably record different notes quickly. So and you can probably start to hear the difference in terms of how it keep that recording signal higher in terms of the level, and that can becomes really handy depending on what you have in your audio input signal. Remember, in this mode, you still have access to the reverb as well, right? Here you can set the mix of the reverb, and you also have the ability here to set a delay. So if you want the reverb to kick in after a delay, just act on these as well. Then under here, you can change the reverberation time for the impulse response. So just act on the length here. And you can also change the position of the fading, where the fade start to happen in that impulse response. Finally, here you can also change the pitch, which is quite important because it will, if you decrease the pitch, it will lengthen the input response and therefore the reverberation time. And pay attention to that because you can create some interesting variation and quite powerful as well. So let's try. Parameter like pitch and amplitude will take a little bit of time to become effective in terms of algorithm. The other thing you can change here is the setting, the amplification to early reflection. It says E at the top here, or you can have it for late reflection. And that becomes interesting in terms of the effect you are trying to create. So very different type of signal. Finally, down here, you have also a depth modulation, where you can change the reverb by modulating it. And you can set the depth here and, of course, the rates. I'm going to increase the rate quite a bit to make it obvious in terms of what it does. Okay, here you can set it to play in direct reverse from a reverberation perspective. And then ultimately for the tutorial of today, you can set different EQ settings. You have 4 different presets, 1 to 4, and it will accentuate different part of the spectrum. So let me try. So hopefully you could hear that when EQ was set to the full preset, it was accentuating treble or higher frequency. Okay, I'm going to stop here for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed and see you next time. Thank you. Bye.